Hi, I'm Bart Hanson. I'm the owner of CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record at 4:45 p.m. Pacific Time every Monday. If you like the channel, please subscribe and hit that like button. And if you want to submit to be on the show, take a look at the information in the description.
So we'll get this going. This is 2-5 played out of Best Bet in Jacksonville, which you'll be here in a few days.
Yes, I will be in back.
Check out.
Yep.
This is 2-5. We are 1.1K effective.
Okay.
And the action starts with an under the gun 1 raising to 20.
Okay, so UTG 1 to 20.
And there are 3 callers.
3 callers, okay.
I am in the big blind with ace king off.
Okay.
And I 3-bet to 100.
So 3-bet to 100. So that's sort of on the smaller side. I don't know where these callers are, like their positions and the effective stack sizes of everybody. I mean, I know there's a lot of players, but if you were to do like a 4x plus the limps or plus the calls in there, you'd probably have like 140. I think it's, I mean, I know it's 5x, but because of that extra dead money, did everybody have about the same stacks, or is it like varying stacks?
Yeah, they're all over the place.
They're all over the
mostly
place.
smaller, yeah.
Okay.
In the 500 range.
Okay. I mean, if they were
maybe.
smaller, I could get on board with going a little bit smaller. I just want you to let you know that that's a little bit on the small side.
Yeah, and after the hand, I thought that was a little bit small. I mean, I thought at least 120 should have been at least.
Yeah.
But
so
yeah.
you 3-bet to 100.
Yep. And the initial raiser and one of the middle players that called calls.
All right. So UTG1 calls and MP1 calls. Maybe the first caller, something like that.
Yeah, first or second caller.
Okay. So pot's like 300 and maybe 340 to 360.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the flop is ace queen 4 rainbow.
Ace queen 4 rainbow. You have ace king. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
I choose to bet 125.
Okay.
The initial raiser folds and the middle position player calls.
So +1, the initial raiser folds, and MP1 calls. This is really interesting here because this is kind of a unique scenario where you can, if anybody wants to experiment sometimes with triple barreling, or, they're not necessarily comfortable, and they're like, hey, Bart, where's the best spot to run a triple barrel? Now, obviously, you're not bluffing here, Russ. I mean, you obviously have the best hand, but whenever you 3-bet from out of the blinds and an initial late position caller calls, like a late position open, like the gravy spot is like cutoff opens, button calls, you 3-bet out of the smaller big blind, and then button calls. Like you have such a huge sort of premium hand advantage that it's really hard for the button to continue on against multiple barrels, especially with top pair. And people don't understand that they're supposed to defend much lighter because they're arriving with inevitably the strongest parts of their range when they hit top pair. But they don't do that. Like if they have ace-9, they're not going to go to the end, right, on an ace-high board. This is similar here, Russ, because you've got MP1 calling the initial open, not 3-betting, and overcalling. You do have the initial raiser calling here as well, but we wouldn't expect MP1 to have a ton of ace-queens here, not necessarily a ton of ace-kings. Hand is most likely, an ace, right, if it's ace-queen 4 rainbow.
Yeah, and of course this is low stakes, and players don't 3-bet light, as you're aware.
Right.
I mean, I've seen plenty of times people ace-king, ace-queen, no 3-bet, just calling in. It's definitely not outside of the realm that this guy would have a hand like ace-queen offsuit, just not 3-betting.
Right. Of course, Surf and Snowboard, is that the Surf and Snowboard from Live the Bike? Surf in the live chat, he says, set of 4s. Yes, that's definitely a possibility, but we wouldn't really see pocket aces or pocket queens here represented, right, from the MP1 usually,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you've got the best hand here, obviously a ton. So the pot's 590, okay.
Yep. So the turn is the 7 of nothings, just an offsuit 7.
Okay.
So it's just a perfect brick for me.
Total rainbow.
Yep.
Okay.
I decided to bet 300.
So how much left is this? So does this guy have you covered, by the way?
No, I have him covered.
Do you remember how much he has left in his stack before you bet on the turn? So we can sort of reverse engineer this.
He's got about 900.
So Well, you guys probably have about the same stack then. If he has 900 before, because he put 125 and 100 in, right? 100 pre and 125 on the flop, right? So he probably started with right around 1100 too.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
I think I had him covered by maybe.
Okay. So he's got 900. So we'll put that in there because we're probably going to use this hand. So he's got 900 left. You're going to bet 300 here. So it's about half the size of the pot. Ace, queen, 4, turns a 7. I mean, I think I would keep betting here too. I mean, yeah, he might run into like ace 7 or something like that. It is a total rainbow board. So maybe the guy continues to slow play like a set of 4s, but inevitably this is going to be like a lot of ace jack, ace 10, suited aces, something like that. You're betting 300 into 590. Okay. And does he call?
Yeah, that was my exact read.
Yeah.
Is that I think if he's got anything better than me, he's gonna raise right now. But yeah, my read was a hand like ace jack, ace 10, somewhere in that realm.
Yeah.
So yep, I bet 300 and he calls.
All right. So now we're looking at about the pot being about 1190. And he's got about 600 left, right? So you're looking at about a half pot size bet, right, left at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So the river is a jack.
So this is really interesting. When you emailed me this in, I'm like, we're going to have you on to talk about the data. And I was like, this is a really interesting hand here, right? Because it kind of reminds me a little bit about, one of the other crazy things about Postle that people understand poker, at least at sort of the medium to high level, and Joey pointed this out too, Russ, is that like if Postle had a second best hand on the river, but somehow somebody rivered him, but his hand was just like way too strong to say like check, right? Like it's always going to be a bet, but he didn't want to check call like a huge bet because the guy had a strong hand. He would block the river. And it would sometimes like cause a guy he'd block to like, he would block the river to like 30 or 40. And then somebody would just call or make a gigantic raise and he would like bet fold as opposed to check, right? And be put in a spot. So this kind of reminds me of that a little bit. I'm not a huge fan of a block bet. Now a block bet on the river, of course, is a bet where, you're like sort of preventing your opponent from betting larger. And the reason why I'm not a huge fan of the block bet is that who cares if your opponent bets larger? Like, say you were to check here and your opponent moved all in, or your opponent bet 500 or 600. Well, now you just look at the way that the hand went down and you say, well, is my hand good, according to the pot odds? So if you checked and this guy moved in for 600, you'd be getting 3-1. Are you good here 1 out of 4 times, right? Where you can block, though, Russ, is a spot where you can get called by worse. It makes no sense, I feel like, to block the river if you can't get called by worse. That's where people get confused. I can see this river going 2 ways. I think betting all in is way too thin now with this run out with ace-king. It's ace-queen, 4-7, jack. Even though it's small stakes and it's 2-5, and I sort of laughed about some of the level of play when I've done the Crush Live Poker videos from Jacksonville, I don't think a guy's going to hold on here with ace 10 or ace 9 for a $600 bet. Now, as another option, though, that people don't understand, and I talk about quite a bit in my training material, is you can plan to check fold. And people are like, what do you mean check fold? I mean, check, and if the guy has a weaker ace, he's going to check behind, you're going to win. So, I mean, yeah, you might have the best hand here more than 50% of the time, right? So you check, and he checks behind, you win. But if you check and he makes a huge bet, you look at the pot odds and you realize, oh shit, like I'm probably not good here, right? He's running to ace jack. He's not going to turn an ace into a bluff. There's no draws out there. I can't be good. So you're checking to check fold. So I could see 2 options. I could see check folding here on the river, checking and then folding to a large bet, not like some tiny bet, but like a considerable bet, or blocking the river, betting like 200 to 250, getting called by an ace because they're going to get incredible pot odds. And you don't really have to worry about somebody turning something into a bluff. The problem sometimes when you block on like a front door draw board is that somebody might sort of sense that as weakness and might hop on that, even though the raise bluff frequency on the river is not that large in live poker. But here, I think it might be the perfect time to do it. So the first time I read your hand, I thought, okay, I'm going to check fold. I think moving all check fold to like maybe over a $400 bet, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I think maybe blocking is better now that I look at this. Like maybe blocking 250 is better.
Well, that's funny. This is why I'm a CLP sub, Bart, because
Yeah.
this is my almost exact thoughts throughout the hand. I thought really did not want to check fold the river. I did not want to check and face any kind of bet from this guy. I felt like a bet on the river that was not all in would get snap called by ace 10. And if he has ace jack or anything better, I mean, I'm really only losing to ace jack. But I felt like a bet here was in order to get called by an ace 10.
Well, the reason why I think ace jack might be represented here, though, too, is because it's a hand that people will call a raise with and then sometimes overcall a 3-bet, whereas you might not see that with, ace 10 as much, like ace 10 off or something like that. But I just want to go back to what you're saying, and I know it's semantics, but you don't want to think about it necessarily as I don't want to check call a bet, because I think that checking and folding is still viable here to a certain sizing, because there's really no hand that he's going to turn into a bluff here. So if you check and he bets like 500, if you check, he moves all in, you just simply fold, right?
Yeah, that would be a fold.
The reason why I think blocking is a little bit better is because if you block, you get the value from the portion of his hand strength that will just check behind. You see what I'm saying? You're going to get the call from the portion of his hand strength that's going to check behind. So,
yeah. And that's why the action went as it did on the river here.
What did you do?
On the river, then I bet on the turn. So I bet 300 again on the river. And something interesting happened that I wasn't expecting, is that he jammed.
Well, I mean, here's the other thing too. Well, here's the other thing too about blocking, right? You got to figure out if you can possibly fold. Given, I mean, if you only started with 600 here, and the pot's 12, if you bet 3 into 12, that means that if he jams on you, the pot's going to be 2,100, 300 for you to call.
Right, and I can't fold.
I mean, are you good here 1 out of 8 times?
It's almost like with his line, am I ever good? But can I ever fold getting 7-1?
See, that's why I think that the sizing is off. You know what I mean? Like if you had more money, like 1,000, you might be able. But even 300, because I don't know, like even 300, like you're betting half your stack. So I think that the block, it might not even look like a block because you're betting half of your stack. That's why I almost prefer like 200 here. Like I'd feel like a lot better betting like 150, as somebody said in the chat, or 200 and then folding to a raise, because I just don't see people when he calls the flop bet and he calls the turn bet, if you're saying that there's no draws out there whatsoever, it's total rainbow, then he'd literally have to be turning like an ace into a bluff on the river. And I just don't see that happening. If I were to get in this spot and I bet 3 into 12 and he shoved and it's 21 for 3, I mean, I guess maybe I would flick in the call, but I do think that you're risking a little bit too much. It sounds to me like you called.
I did call. And he turned over queen 10 off.
He turned a queen into a bluff for a min raise? Well, that's why sometimes you have to call given the pot odds, right?
What
the fuck?
That's what I was thinking after the hand. Like, I think the sizing was kind of bad, and if it was more, I have to fold. That's why I kind of didn't want to just check fold to this guy. But I felt at the end I had to call, even though I felt like there's no way I can really be good with the action. How can I ever fold a worse hand than he has, or a better hand than he has for 300 into 2,100?
Well, I mean, listen, it's one of these things. Again, I look back though too is that from a lot of the stuff from the live patterns that I see at this level. I mean, obviously, yes, you're right about the pot odds. There are certain boards where, in order for your opponent to be bluffing, they have to be turning a pair into a bluff, right? Like here.
Yeah.
Like this isn't like he can have a gut shot that picked up like backdoor flushing cards, right? Even if he had a gut shot on the flop and he was floating you, right, with like king jack or jack 10, he still rivers a pair. But you just don't see it that much. So Whenever I'm in a spot where I can actually deduce that if my opponent is bluffing, he has to be turning a pair into a bluff, I will lean towards overfolding quite a bit, just like I'll lean towards overfolding when there's river action, river aggression action, right? I wonder what he would have done if you checked at the end. Because your sizing isn't really, when you bet half your stack, this guy must be really bad to think that like you're going to fold for 300 more.
Bart.
No, I know. I guess, well, hey, I'm going to be playing on their stream on Friday, so pretty sure I'm going to be there 5, 10, 20. So, Russ, I appreciate it. Thanks for the call. Hey guys, if you like what you've seen here, please click on the subscribe button and you'll get notified every time we put up a new video. And if you want to check out crushlivepoker.com for the first month free, use the code YTA200. Click on the link right there.